Hello again, Michael Sheridan here, and welcome to So You Think You're Awake, a show dedicated to unlocking the meaning of your dreams. I realise I'm getting more relaxed into the show and less tense. My voice is probably less higher pitched, and in a few weeks I'll probably end up sounding like Barry White. Anyway, last week the theme was dreams about channeling, and I interpreted a dream from Jane where she was watching opera singers. When she heard the analysis on the air, she sent me a dream she had the week before. It's very short, and I include it because it covers the same subject but using symbols that are far more common, but this allows me to lead into a very important point afterwards. So Jane's simple dream is, I was at the ocean watching a pod of dolphins. They were swimming and leaping so close to the shoreline that it seemed impossible the water was deep enough for them to do that. I decided to remove my socks and shoes and get in the water with them. Okay, so this dream is also about channeling. Dolphins are mammals, we're mammals, but dolphins have returned to the ocean, and oceans in dreams represents the spiritual world, represents where life comes from, which is the spirit world. But they're air-breathing mammals like us, but they can live in the ocean. So it represents the special ability that Jane has to go into the spirit world and have no difficulty in there at all. So it's really good. Now, the other thing that's in the dream, of course, is her saying, I didn't think the water was deep enough for them to be doing the jumps and so on. So this is saying that Jane, through using her channeling ability, will deepen her spiritual understanding or get into deeper water. But what's really good is, of course, by the end of the dream, she takes off her socks and shoes and gets in the water with them. And that's what dreams are always trying to do, lure us into whatever the positive guiding symbol in the dream is. Usually we don't, so it's very good to see that in Jane's. The point I wanted to lead into is, why do we dream in symbols? And do symbols mean the same thing for each person? Well, the answer is they don't mean the same thing for each person. They can. Dreams have a universal archetypal type of meaning, symbols do, but a person can override a particular association with a symbol, and that's where it gets tricky. It's probably the only complication to dream analysis. So you have to know, does a particular symbol mean something different for a particular person? I've never seen dreams about dolphins and orcas and whales meaning anything other than channeling. So some are always safe to bet on. But staying on that subject of symbols, I have a free newsletter on my website, dreamanalysis.com, and I wrote an article about this. I wanted to paraphrase it for the show, but in the end I decided to read it as I wrote it. It's fairly short, so don't panic. But before I do, just wanted to tell you the phone number for the show is 425-373-5527. So if you have a dream and you want it analysed, please do give me a call. This is also proof that it's a live show. Another number for the show, toll-free in Western Washington, is 888-298-KKNW. And I've also added a 24-hour phone line that works all the time. It's 206-905-9767. And the idea is that you can call that number at any time you want, right after having your dream in the middle of the night even, and leave your dream, and I will use it next week on the show. But I'll get back to that later. So back to why we dream in symbols. So why do you dream in symbols if dreams are so important? The answer is simple. It's because since before you were born, you were a dreamer. Dreams, like any language, must be studied to understand it. Consider how it is you speak your native language. It is a combination of where you were born, your heritage, and the massive effort you and those who taught you put into your learning it. Has that effort paid off? Yes, that's rhetorical. How much effort have you put into learning the language of dreams? As to whether any effort put into that would pay off, the answer is a resounding yes. And if you're listening to this show, you already know that. As a native dreamer, you speak dreams for 8 hours a day. I deliberately say speak dreams because each dream is a dialogue between you and your higher self. By examining the dialogue, you can discover your purpose in life and receive the current advice you are being given. During your dream, you fully understand the language in use. You fully know that the cat scratching the kitchen wallpaper represents a problem with your stomach lining. You know you cannot fly physically, and that flying is you mentally rising above your problems. You know the wall you need to climb over was put there by you to keep others at a distance and prevent a recurrence of emotional pain. You know why these things appear and what your higher self is asking you to do about them, but more often than not, like most of us, you reject the message intended to direct your growth. To better understand dreams, you need to look past the illusion that the physical world is the real world. It is a world you enter into briefly and will leave. You are not a body with a soul, you are a soul with a body. You only need a body while here, and the experiences you have on the earth plane will, by careful design, help you grow in awareness, removing limiting beliefs that you previously had on the spirit plane. Your higher self is clued into the big picture. Your soul, the real you, is aware of the true nature of reality, but is conditioned by your experiences here. This conditioning, mostly achieved through parental influences, is designed to match the conditioning already held by you on the spirit plane. Your life purpose usually includes recognizing, accepting, and then eliminating this conditioning through various means. Recognition and acceptance are harder than they sound. The alcoholic who destroys their life and their loved ones' lives is usually the last person to know they are an alcoholic. Realization, acceptance, and growth all must come from within, from the soul. That's where dreams do their work. They are your higher self guiding your soul through recognition, acceptance, and healing. They also comment on the events of the day and include practical advice and guidance. The answers to your life questions are given to you each night, ironically hidden right before your eyes. You don't need to learn the language of dreams for this nightly process to work. It'll continue throughout your life, but it is your choice whether it remains under the radar. Through dreams, your higher self wants you to awaken and discover your true nature. If you put a little effort into learning their language, your soul's language, you will be amazed at what you learn about yourself. Wow, somebody should hire that author, don't you think? Okay, so that's from my newsletter. If you want more like that, then just subscribe to it on my website, dreamanalysis.com. My site is not affiliated with anyone or any companies, so you won't get calls or emails telling you what type of picket fence would look great in your yard. You just get articles I write about dreams, plain and simple and free. Speaking of writing and free, back in 2007, I wrote an extremely detailed book on dreams entitled How to Interpret Your Dreams. Very straightforward title. A black and white version of this book is available on Amazon for $14.95. It also is available on Kindle for $2.99. In its original format, it was printed in full colour using lithographic printing. I went all out on this book. Each chapter covers a specific topic, and at the end of each chapter, I include several dreams, each one written on a treasure map parchment. I highlight symbols on the map, and coloured lines lead out to bubbles that explain the meaning of that symbol, taken right from the dictionary in the same book. That is all followed by a full analysis of the dream where I put all the symbols together. Is it sounding good? Great, because here's how you can get the colour copy for free. Phone my new dedicated show phone line on 206-905-9767 and leave your dream on the message machine for use in next week's show. The first 5 callers will win the colour copy of the book. You can't get this version anywhere else. I wish you could, but you can't. Are there any publishers listening out there? Contact me. Be sure to leave your phone number and address so I can send it to you. The book is actually, and how I wrote the book is quite a good lead into how karma works. I've talked about the difference between karma and dharma briefly, and it is something I will get into further in the show, especially when it comes up in particular people's dreams. But I left work, I took a year's sabbatical and had enough money to support myself for a year. And I was going to develop my own software house and my own software to, make my living, do my own thing. But about 5 days after I left work, I got contacted by a publisher in New York asking me would I write a book on dreams. My website had been around for a very long time at that stage, from 97. So this is 10 years after the website and 15 years after I had been teaching the classes. So it wasn't what I had thought about doing, but I realized, okay, the synchronicity of it is huge. And so I wrote 2 chapters and then wrote several entries for the dictionary. I've never liked the idea of dictionaries because, like I said earlier, we can override the meaning of particular symbols. So it's never good to pick up a book and look up what a bird means or what anything particular means without the context of saying, okay, it means this in a particular dream setting, so that you can then look at it and say, that doesn't fit my dream setting, so it's not going to work for me. But anyway, I wrote the book, but when a few chapters and I sent them in. But what I discovered was that they had contacted a few people at the same time, and I'd already selected somebody before I got back to them 6 weeks later with my manuscript. And after getting over the initial disappointment of that, I decided to continue on and write the book, and that's what I spent my year off doing. I actually thought it was only going to take me 2 months maybe to write the book, but it's surprising how even when you know a subject well or think you know it well, how much you have to pull things together to put it in a coherent form that other people can follow. But anyway, that's how the book came about, and that's a perfect example of karma in operation. If I was on the dharmic path, I would have heard the message from my guide saying, it's time for you to write a book about this subject, but I didn't. So I ended up getting told it in other ways that seem bad at the time. I mean, the advantage to me of losing the publisher was that I then wrote the book that I wanted to write rather than writing a book that I thought somebody else would want to publish. So it's when I look back, it's one of the best things I ever did. So I'm very happy with having done it. But at the time, like I said, karmic path, you don't always realize that this is the best thing to be happening. So I want to have a look at another few dreams that got sent in during the week. And this dreamer, Nadia, has two dreams. The first I'm just going to cover briefly because it fits in with the symbols of dolphins and whales. And what's interesting, the reason that made me think about symbols is I wrote the book in 2007. My website's there since 1997. These symbols are on the website, and they've been on there, for so long. So it's not that I get the dream and go, okay, I wonder what that means. A lot of the time in advance, we already know. Is it possible you're going to ring and phone in with a dream that I don't know? Absolutely. But don't do that, please. Anyway, here's our first dream. I was walking around an indoor pool. The acoustics in the room were boomy and the walls were made of cinder blocks that were painted white. Swimming in the pool were all different kinds of large fish. As I walked around the edge of the pool, I saw two baby orca whales. Now remember I said two comes up a lot in channel streams. So we have two baby orca whales swimming in there as well. So it's just like dolphins. The whales represent the ability to exist in the spirit world or go into the spirit world. In this case, to get messages, bring them back and channel for other people. I wondered if the pool was large enough for them, especially with all the other fish in there already. I made a complete circle around the pool, and then the second baby orca swam up to me, to the edge of the pool. He extended his flipper to me, and when I touched it, an image of a human hand was superimposed on his flipper. When I looked at the rest of his body, there was an image of a man on the orca, like a projection on the whale. I saw the whale and a transparent image of a man over the whale. Then I woke up. So, okay, this dream and the projection of the man's hand on the flipper and the man projected on the whale, are trying to show you, look, this is a normal human ability. It isn't supernatural. It isn't spooky. It isn't something you should be afraid of. Now, a lot of people are afraid of this when they get into it first, and that's understandable. But you get past the fear, and usually the fear isn't fear of communication. It's other things that make us have the fear. But here the dream is saying, look, what you need is being projected, and you'll be able to pick this up. It also says you're supported, because a man in this dream shows you're being supported. You're being projected. This has been projected for you from the spirit world. It also says you tend to approach life from a male perspective. We all have male and female energy. Male energy is to do with confidence, belief in yourself, and a few other things like that. But to say you're too male would indicate somebody who's rational, uses their intellect more than they need to, and they don't listen to their heart. So, and that's where a lot of us are guilty of that. Not everybody, but a lot of us. So it comes up in dreams to say, look, sometimes you need to just let go, trust, and follow your heart. For some people, following your heart is almost impossible because they don't know how to listen to it because they've spent so long up in their head rationalizing their way through life. Anyway, her next dream, and so I wanted to move into a few dreams about healing and health. And of course, dreams don't take the place of a doctor, but dreams will say, here's a health condition that you need to go to your doctor to get checked. Or they might say, here's a condition that is, a potential, something that you don't have now, but avoid all these things the dream is saying and you won't develop the problem. There's never such a thing as being told something in a dream that you don't want to hear. It's absolutely crazy. It's like saying to your doctor, I don't want to know what's wrong with me. You just wouldn't do it. You wouldn't be at your doctor in the first place if you didn't want to. But there are people like that. There are people that don't want to know what their conditions are. And even when I was, when my book was being put into bookshops way back in 2007, some bookstores didn't want to carry it because it discussed the subject of cancer and how that shows up in a dream. Now, of course, you can't censor books. They didn't know that, but it's interesting that some people have such fears over particular issues. Anyway, her dream is, I was in a rehearsal. A director was there. We were given a dinner break, but we were not taking the break in New York. Instead, we all got into vans and went out into the country to eat. So we have eating and dinner coming up here. It was a rural resort. It was fall, and there were lots of fallen leaves on the ground. Now, what happens to fallen leaves? They rot, the vegetation they nearly always are going to mean the one particular thing, which is a dream about the colon elimination system. It's the only part where food rots in our bodies. Lovely subject, but that's the way it is. A black cobra popped out of the ground eating a frog. So we have something else eating. You could only see the legs of the frog hanging out of its mouth. Folks started shouting and we dispersed. And as we were leaving the area, little baby black cobras came wriggling out of the ground. Now, this is the bad part of the dream. The baby black cobras coming out of the ground. We don't like to see that in a dream. Now, this is not saying this dreamer has a particular condition or anything like that. I've had many dreams that are along these lines. So what this dreamer needs to do is detox, improve the health of her colon, do things that are going to improve that. And we see from the next part, the dream continues on. I went over to a muddy slope. It wasn't much of a hill, but it was still enough of an incline. There were boards lying on the slope so people could walk up it without getting muddy. Now, the boards are also going to be about the elimination system because of the wood. I stepped on the boards and they started to sink into the mud. There was a log next to the boards. The log is also the elimination system, but half of it was submerged in the mud. When I stepped on it, it emerged from the mud and I can walk on it all the way up the hill. As I was walking up, I kept worrying about getting mud splattered on my dress or falling off the log and into the mud, thus dirtying my performance outfit before the show. I made it to the top of the hill and walked past one of the many hotel buildings on the resort grounds and to the van. Okay, so this says her issues go all the way back to birth because of the hotel. We've had that before, reception at birth. Reception at birth is a big thing, and hotel receptions symbolize that, so hotels symbolize that. So why does it come up in the dream? It says, okay, it goes back to there. So the issues, the stress that you have in your life right now around your career, which is indicated by the van, and it's also indicated by the theme of her dream. She's afraid about getting mud on her performance dress, and it's all about the performance, and she's a singer, great singer. I've heard her sing. So it's saying stress over career is what's that on top of the fact that you need to look after the health of your colon. Just eat well, do stuff that detoxes you, etc. And that's going to be perfect. That's all you need to do. And knowing it is quite often is what the two stresses are is enough. Now we have somebody on the phone. I'm sorry I've kept you waiting a little while. We have Melissa. And just to give you the phone number again, it's 425-373-5527 or toll free in Western Washington is 888-298-KKNW. So hi Melissa, I hope you're still there.
Hi, thank you for taking my call.
Great. You have a dream.
Yes, and it's kind of long, so I don't know if you want me to...
Well, what's the title? What title would you give the dream, and what would be the salient points? Well, you can start it. You can start it from the start.
I call it 369.
Okay. Well, ironically enough, that's quite often enough to know. The title is always important in the dream. Start at the start. Quite often what we have at long dreams is the first paragraph tells us what the dream is about. The second paragraph tells us again what the dream is about. There's quite often repetition, little differences. But go ahead with your dream, please.
Okay, so I was walking down a hill or a mountainside, probably more of a hill, and there were other people around, but I had two guys were with me, kind of like side to side, but kind of behind me. And I was walking down the hill, and a voice came to me, I say God, and said, kind of stay in the light or whatever. And I'm thinking, okay, I think he's just joking. And I continued to walk, and there was, all of a sudden, this storm came up, and it was gray, and it was terrible, kind of a storm, kind of really something that you'd see on TV as far as sci-fi storms coming up. And all of a sudden, I kind of got stuck, and I was on my stomach or whatever, but one of the guys came over and picked me back up and helped me get back into this light. And it was like a beam. It was so wild. And I'm standing in the light. The clouds go away. It's clear. It's all good. So I continue my journey down the hill. I get down to the bottom of the hill. These people, our teacher had left. I don't know what happened to him. So he was gone. And so these people built this temple or this building. And I was like, well, that's all cool for you, but it's really not for me. So I sit down on this disc, and I start floating over these rocks and these pits and everything. And I just kind of float along, and all of a sudden I stop, and I get up, and these two rocks come running up to me, and they're so happy to see me, and I'm so happy to see them. And I'm like, oh, my goodness, I'm so happy to see you. And they are talking to me. And the one says, okay, so you need to put this little disc thing inside here so that we can communicate back home so that we can go back to where we came from. So I put it in, and I was like, okay, so I'm on this journey. It's a 9-week journey. I was already there for 3. I have 6 more to go, and I was like, you guys can go ahead, but I'm going to finish this. And as I look off into the distance, I'm like seeing myself and these 2 guys, and they're walking to finish this quest.
Okay.
That's the end.
Okay, that's not too long, and it stayed on track. Okay, so you're heading downhill at the start. Did you say down a hill?
Yes, kind of a mountainside type of a thing.
Okay, well, that's better than going uphill. An uphill struggle means exactly the opposite of what your dream means. So your path before you is not a steep path. It's not a difficult path. But what's really cool about this dream is the emphasis on the number 9. 9 is an unusual number in dreams. Not many people have it. I dare you to try dream about it. It indicates somebody who's an advanced soul. You've been here many times, and you're on your last necessary earth life. We come here to improve our awareness of ourselves, and we can only do it to a point. When we've reached a certain level of awareness, then it's easier for us to just continue on the spirit plane and increase our awareness further from that point forward. Doesn't mean we can't come here, but we just don't need the lessons of the earth anymore. Now, with people who have this, they're often described as an old soul, and it really just means that you're so familiar with the airplane because you've been here so many times and you've covered so many of the lessons that you could while you're here, that everything just is like, I know that. That's okay. And there's nothing really fantastic and remarkable that jumps at you. You can still get excited about things. But here, the 3 and the 6, 3 is to do a commitment. So it's saying you're being asked to commit to this path. Commit to the fact that this is your last necessary earth life. It can only be your last one when you do what you came here to do. So it's kind of like a kick in the ass at the same time. So you obviously need that kick in the ass, and I don't know why. But the 6 says it's also about the dharmic path. The dharmic path, which I mentioned earlier, is about living in a state where you know what your life is about. You know about the spirit world. You know, and it's nothing to do with religion. Don't confuse the two. Absolutely nothing to do with religion. So if you've had a religious upbringing like I did, it can sometimes be a kind of a block because you have to overcome this and remove the conditioning of that upbringing. You don't discard the whole thing, of course, but some of the things tell you shouldn't be doing this. But in your case anyway, you should be doing it. You should be teaching because you come across a teacher when you get to the bottom. So you know a lot about this stuff. Probably could even be helping me, teaching me stuff here. But you hold back probably, and that's probably what the kick is about, to get you going. And staying in the light, this case, is just your own light, your inner light. It's not about following a religious path or anything like that. But you've got help. You've got people either side of you, you say. So you can't really fail here. You've got all the support you need. So if you've been asking the question, of yourself, of your higher self, do I have the support I need to do what I need to do in your life? The dream is saying, absolutely you do. They're here, they're with you. Absolutely no problem. But you're still looking for something concrete. I mean, that tells us the 2 rocks talking. And 2s come up a lot here in the communication. So you're able to communicate. Hearing back the answers, of course, is the part you got to work on. But you have this ability, but you'd like to see something concrete, to really believe in the spirit world. You'd love something to manifest in front of you and say, here I am, shake my hand, etc. You're not going to get that. But it's understandable why you would want it. But it's all good. The storm, I know I've skipped pieces, but the storm is just about going through a transition. But the idea of this, uncertainty and emotional period is to say, and I don't know if this has already happened for you, but if it hasn't, it's coming. It's to purge away all the nonsense and make you hold more steadfast to, okay, I'm going to get back on track and I'm going to complete this. Anyway, that's what your dream's about. I hope it makes sense to you.
So what did the disc mean, to communicate back home, to go back where
the disc is, because it's circular, it represents a goal. And it's saying this is a goal or an ideal that you should use. And in the dream, you sit on it and you float. So you have a strong intellect as well. But it's something you should use. Use this disc, engage this goal, and get your communication working with the spirit world. Can you already channel? Are you already aware that you can channel?
Well, I've had dreams where I was channeling, and it was kind of crazy. But no, I have not done it.
And what about the teaching? Okay, but you can do it. Absolutely, you can do it. What about the teaching? Have you ever thought about maybe sharing your wisdom with other people, particularly in the spiritual world?
I do reads and stuff like that for my kids. So they call me and they ask me, well, what about this? What about that? And of course, I'm always, well, I'm not always right.
Okay.
It's not always the way that it is. So then and I do energy work with them.
Okay. Well, you need to do it with more than just them. And this, I'm not always right. That's an understandable thing. A lot of people say that. And it's part of the field. You don't want to put somebody on the wrong path. But when you've got this teaching ability, you can't. Because two people will ask you the same question and you'll answer both of them differently. Not hugely differently, but you're able to tailor, because you're listening. It's a female energy thing. You're able to tailor what you're saying to suit the person and to suit what they need to hear. So, no, it's really good.
Okay.
Do it. You're going to have more dreams that kick you, but absolutely do it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for calling.
Bye-bye.
Okay. I was going to talk about dreams about healing, so I'm just going to skip ones that I had here and cover a dream for Marcella. She says, I was in the dark turning onto South Circular Road. The cars were backed up, so I only barely turned. Then I realised that I could move forward because I was on a bike. Now, this South Circular is going to be about getting in touch with your heart. It's about the heart and circulatory system. That's what the circular is about. And then the bike is also another symbol for the heart and circulatory system, because it requires balance to use, etc. And it also uses wheels. Anything with wheels is typically can be about the heart, but here a bike definitely is. So the bike had no light, but I decided that if I was stopped by the police, I would say that the light had just been stolen. Not very nice, Marcella. I went into a bank on my right to buy a bond. Banks are also about the circulatory system because they control the circulation of money in the economy. And we know that now better than ever. There was an elderly lady serving. I couldn't remember the correct name for the bond, but I explained to her that it was for retirement. She was giving me a universal bond glue. Now, you don't want to retire, Marcella. You need to get into writing. I've seen your other dreams. That's what you're meant to do. She was giving me universal bond glue. There was a shelf of the stuff behind her. We both had a great laugh when she realised her mistake. I decided to up the value of the bond I was buying from 10 to 20. I didn't have enough money, so I asked her to use a debit card. I had a very crumpled up 20 note and was looking at that when my doorbell woke me up. And you say here, and it was an idiot wanting to do work for me who had the wrong address. Well, thanks for sharing that. So it's about the universal bond glue is saying you have a bond, there's something you need to do, and in your case it's writing. You need to write for other people. The other thing, and I discussed this with Marcella off the air, it's also saying you need to watch your cholesterol level, and you told me that you're already on tablets for doing that for the last 9 years, so you're already well aware. Okay, so what I want to say is I have an event in East West Bookshop on January 17th. It's $15 if anybody wants to go to that. Look up East West Bookshop. I also have a dream course on the 24th and 25th, and an online dream course for anybody who isn't in Seattle on February 1st. And we're out of time, but thank you very much for listening.